All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. Hi, my name is Nicole Jackson. I am the founder of Black and National Parks Week, which was created back in August of 2020. It is now 2024. Time is crazy. Time is wild. And really, how much time has passed and how much of these story project interviews I've been doing since 2021. But I'm so thrilled to still be doing them. And today is April 26th, 2024, and it's Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. And I am super excited for our guest today, Ashley. And yeah, it's Friday. It was a beautiful day out. I got some nature time as well as some birding time. And I am pretty excited for spring with the birds and nature and traveling and all these things. I have some really fun things coming up that I want to share with everyone, but also hopefully you all are getting chances to be outdoors, visit national parks. It is still National Park Week officially. So feel free to check out the nps.gov website for more information on that so you can participate and yeah, be a part of the celebration. So without further ado, we have our guest here today, Ashley Cleveland. And I'm excited to talk with her because she is also known on social media as Outdoor Auntie. So if you would like to introduce yourself, welcome.
Hello, my name is Ashley Cleveland. I am a national park enthusiast and outdoor advocate. I really care about access, and I am affectionately known as Outdoor Auntie.
So good to have you with me. First off, I just want to kind of get the vibes of what your week has been like with the outdoors. Have you had a chance to get outside much, hike, garden, any of that
Yes,
stuff?
no, it's been great. So here in Utah right now, we have a little storm that's blowing through. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for when it's over with. You know, April showers bring May flowers, but when it's over, I'm looking forward to a nice blue skies, 60-degree weather, and some sun. Here lately, a lot of Utahns are pulling out their bikes, getting tune-ups, and going for e-bike rides, myself included, and getting ready to put stuff in the garden and getting ready for hiking season. So time to
Nice,
dust those
nice.
hiking boots off.
Yeah, that's so bizarre because it's like really warm and like 75 here in Ohio, central Ohio. So
Good
it's so
old climate
interesting
change.
to, right? It's interesting to see how the weather is changing across the US, drastically changing. And I hope you've had opportunities to visit some national parks so far this year because I feel like with it being 2024, um, it's also a time to really like advocate for parks and like really think about how we utilize these spaces as Black people, whether we're sharing stories, whether we're getting out for exercise, whether it's for mental health. I feel like this is a great time to really advocate for parks. And a lot of that's been happening on the Hill this past month. With it being spring and there's tons of national park sites in DC. Have you experienced any or have been a part of any lobbying specifically for national parks this year or in the past?
Yeah, I so during my day job, I participate in the state's Office of Outdoor Recreation Advisory Board. So that's how I am included on the conversation with outdoor recreation in national parks. Every year they go to the legislature to lobby for funding, talk about residents' needs, and of course, the advisory board usually oversees grants in the amounts of $500,000 max that they usually provide to nonprofit organizations and municipalities or sometimes private landowners who are wanting to retrofit their land to be more accessible for outdoor recreation. So that's how I participate with that.
Awesome. That's wonderful. What have been some of the concerns that you've heard from park visitors, national park visitors, in increasing accessibility and even diversity and inclusion within national park spaces?
Here in Utah, I usually hear a lot about ADA accommodations. We are doing a really great job in bringing things up to code in that way, but there's still, of course, more work to do. Of course, there are, public restroom issues, and sometimes community members have a hard time with leave no trace principles. So I think there is going to be an educational awareness and campaign around leaving no trace and being a better steward in hiking when you visit not just national parks but state parks. Our city parks are generally pretty clean. Our city park system and most of the municipalities in the state are really great. They're ADA accessible. They have different types of age groups that are included in all of their playgrounds. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. I do hear from my diverse community, though, that we do need more language access materials, whether that's through maps or signage or things of that nature. And of course, it can never hurt for our outdoor industry to focus on having more diverse audiences, displayed in their outreach materials.
That's wonderful. Thank you for breaking that down. It's really good to hear um, what people are thinking about, what's connected to them as far as being able to utilize green space where they live and nearby. Have you had any, I guess, opportunities to connect with other organizations that are promoting like partnerships or building the bridges to fill in those gaps around accessibility and equity?
Oh, absolutely. Salt Lake City, I think, is a great bastion for some of that work, but we also have people down south in Moab doing a lot of that work as well. We have an Outdoor Afro Network that is here and strong in Salt Lake City and serves the whole state. We also have a Latino Outdoors network that is here and serves the whole state. There are some LGBTQ groups available down south, and there are a handful of LGBTQ plus canyoning and climbing groups like
Mhm.
Slack Queer Climbers and Color the Wasatch. There's also a great woman who leads We Color Outside, which are outdoor retreats focused on women of color to experience outdoor nature therapy. So we have a lot. There's Girl in Her Backpack that focuses on young girls and learning how to backpack. And of course, there's Camping in Color that is working with families who have predominantly Black children. It's a partnership with Wasatch Mountain Institute. The Utah Film Center is doing some cool stuff through their Black, Bold, and Brilliant program. So I think we're trying really, really hard over these past 4 to 6 years and broadening and diversifying what the outdoors means here in Utah for all community members.
Yeah, so can you paint a picture for anyone who's not familiar with Utah? Like, what is the landscape? What's the vibe of Utah?
Oh goodness. I
And I
feel
know
like
it's
if
it's
you
massive, so like don't feel like you have to explain all of it, but
No, for sure.
yeah.
It's a fairly small state. We could fit inside of Nevada.
Hmm.
We are larger than Wyoming, I believe, but smaller than Nevada.
Hmm.
The predominant culture here is Mormon culture, and we have a lot of, white allies and friends who make up the state. We also have a lot of Indigenous and Native American people who make up the state. We have 8 tribes represented in Utah, and of course, they have some migrating bands who move throughout the state as they're going from New Mexico to Washington and such. We
Hmm.
have a very vibrant Latino population here in Utah. In Salt Lake City, they make up over 20% of the city's population. As far as Black Americans, we make up about 3%, but I'm not sure if that's inclusive of all Black people, as of course the intersections of immigrant status, refugee status, and just culture. We have Afro Latinos here, we have Venezuelans, we have Cubans. I think the LDS Church plays a big role in that because they do a lot of missions and bring people back here, but also just because of the people power that we have here in Salt Lake. It attracts a lot of young professionals. There are a lot of East and West Asian people that are here. They host a whole Asian festival here in Salt Lake City every year that is very, very large. So it's more diverse than people, I believe, would assume from
Hmm.
outward perception. And it is increasingly becoming more safe and vibrant and fun. And I have been here for 10 years.
Wow. So what have been your experiences in the outdoors growing up? Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. So my family is from Georgia, both sides.
Mhm.
So it's already a part of our history as country folks.
Mhm.
My mom often shares stories of walking home from school and kind of being like an urban forager, if you will, and having peaches as a part of her, after school snack, being plucked off a tree on the way home from school, and pecans and muscadines. I don't know if anyone knows what a muscadine is, but it's a very southern version of a big grape.
Oh wow.
There's crawdads in the creek, and we have a lot of gardening in our family. I come from a generation of sharecroppers that unfortunately experienced chattel slavery in the South. But my mom moved us to California when I was very young. We moved around a lot growing up, and I experienced a bout of housing insecurity with my mom, and we wound up staying at a homeless shelter. And the
Mhm.
family shelter that we were staying at had a partnership with a national park. I think it was Sequoia and maybe
Oh yeah.
Redwood or Yellowstone. I can't remember. I was young. But
Sequoia and Kings Canyon, I believe.
okay, one of those. But I was able through the program, the family shelter had a setup where, if parents want to go and look for work, your kid
Mhm.
could participate in a youth camp. And
Oh,
I
nice.
was one of the only children of color, let alone one of the only black girls on the trip. And I was the shadow of the only female park ranger there that was with us.
Hmm.
And that would, I say, that would be like the most impactful experience I can say that I had because it was with other children. I used to
Yeah.
actually be a wallflower and was very quiet. But towards the end of the trip, I opened up when she was explaining ecology and the importance of the banana slug to deciduous rainforests like the redwood
Hmm.
the redwood forests that are in the Pacific Northwest in Northern California. And I think it just got sparked from then because I wind up growing up and getting my bachelor's degree in environmental science and then going on to work at a national park myself. And I don't know if, if it wasn't for that experience, if I could recollect, um, you know, a joy time with the
Yeah.
outdoors like that.
Yeah. So how transformational was that for you to kind of build yourself up professionally in that way, but then kind of, I mean, obviously we're in those times you're not seeing very much um inclusion and diversity in those spaces, but what kept you motivated to stay on that path?
I think just my love for nature and the environment, and also my passion and kind of anger towards environmental justice issues. I
Hmm.
think moving around a lot showed me that there are disparities in a lot of neighborhoods in
Yeah.
regards to our health and environmental health. So that's what kind of led me to just the environmental justice movement. And then when I became more engrossed in the science or STEM side of it all, I just got
Hmm.
really, I nerded out. I'm a Bill Nye the Science Guy kid,
Yeah.
I'm a PBS kid. So I
Yes.
think that my love of science and nature just kind of kept me there and kept me going. I did definitely recognize that I was the only one in the room at times, but I I think I felt okay with being by myself in certain spaces because when I would come home outside of the outdoors, I would have my community to have
Yeah.
my back, to
Hmm.
keep me going, but it wasn't always easy, no.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I resonate with a lot of what you shared and having 10 siblings, being raised by a single mother, growing up in inner city Cleveland, but also, talking about being a wallflower. Like it's very quiet, but like when it came time to like talk about nature and like the outdoors and stuff, like I was very chatty. Like I can talk about that all day. So it was hard for me to just, I guess, normally like everybody else socialize, but like when people started talking about stuff that I was interested in, it was hard to keep me quiet.
You just
But
brighten up.
right, and it was such an awesome feeling to just want to learn more and like absorb the information around the outdoors and like what you were experiencing, what you were curious about, and like just had questions about, and like nature and science and all the stuff that I was watching on TV, Nat Geo, and like all of that. I was just like, yes, this is my world that I feel connected to and comfortable in, without it feeling like I had to try so hard. But like, if I was having a hard time socially, I can always go back to, reading books or watching my nature shows and get right back into that comfort. What has been your experience with visiting national parks um, as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I feel like my general experience is, majority of the visitors have been white. When they are not white, they're usually East or West Asian, and it's
Mhm.
usually a family affair, which I think
Mhm.
is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Here in Utah, I have a tendency to see people outside of those demographics experiencing the outdoors more locally. So I'll see them at a state park, I'll see them at, say, like the family Crystal Hot Springs spot,
Mhm.
or just out generally and exploring hiking trails that are closer to the city. I think that, one barrier of access to visiting a lot of national parks is, of course, the fees associated with entering the park and all of the equipment and work and time and effort that goes into visiting a national park if you want to go, visit as a multi-generational family.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of planning, and I think if you're a working class individual, at times that can be a little bit more hard to access. And then
Yeah.
not only that, like knowledge and language and, just very expensive equipment that comes with experiencing the outdoors. You don't always have to take that route, but I think
Right.
it's perceived that you do need to buy things from like REI and have keen shoes instead of choosing alternatives from, say, Walmart. Walmart is great, Target's great for getting some of the essentials that you need to get started with experiencing the outdoors, but I just think the way things are promoted to us doesn't always show that we are there and taking up space in outdoor recreation.
Yeah. And speaking of how we're represented, do you feel like that's something that we've improved on in terms of, say, I think of things like commercials or like advertising, like has that to you, or in your opinion, um, improved?
Yeah, I do. I definitely think that some of the things that I was lacking during my youth, seeing as an
Hmm.
example, will not be an issue that my 7-year-old daughter has when wanting to experience the outdoors. Because one, she has a mom who's already pretty knowledgeable and takes her. But two,
Hmm.
even if she didn't have me, there are lots of summer camps that are specifically focused at belonging, diversity, equity, inclusion. They've always been around, but I think they're taking a very different approach. And then just, with the basic economy and free market, I see a shift. I think Outdoor Afro and then its resulting Outdoor Afro Inc. is doing a really great job. I think that Hike Club partnerships with REI is great. I think Wild Gina doing her
Hmm.
botany bites with Canon and Hyundai is great. I think, Black People Outside or Black Kids Adventures, I think they're all doing great in forming these partnerships with very large national organizations is doing great. And even just outside the Black experience, right? Like I
Yeah.
see Native communities or Navajo communities participating in mountain biking. I just saw a really
Hmm.
great documentary called In the Dirt,
Yeah.
where they're taking, their cultural perspective and their approach to mountain biking and building a culture around that. And so I think that's going to be really, really important as this whole discussion continues to grow momentum and legs and structure under it.
Yeah. And I've seen that too, as well as like skateboarding and trail running, things like that, which is really cool. Um, I think about, I guess, in terms of national parks, when I don't know, when I hear about national parks, I think about, wide open spaces. There's tons of nature, there's tons of wildlife. It takes a while for you to get to those locations, but I think people forget about the, you know, 350 plus national park units that we have outside of the 63 capital N, capital P national park sites. And I've had the opportunity to visit places like Pullman um, and Chicago, as well as the Martin Luther King National Historical Park, battlefields, like places like that are still national park units, but a lot of people don't know that it's part of, we have 420 plus national park sites. Um, and a lot of them are actually in urban areas. Have you visited any, and what has been your experience with other national park units?
I think that national monuments have been my most recent experiences.
Hmm.
I have also visited the Martin Luther King National Monument park area.
Hmm.
I realize that on the East Coast there are more, right? Like
Hmm.
Philadelphia or even say Baltimore, they call it a city of monuments. I think that that is something that is often forgotten by people because I don't know if we necessarily look towards a history fact when we're thinking of outdoor recreation. It might
Yeah.
be just view corridors and getting that heart rate up as we're, hiking and things like that. But to answer your question, I don't think people necessarily always think about it. The same thing could be said for BLM land here in Utah. That
Hmm.
is takes up almost half of the state's land catalog is
Yeah.
BLM land. And then, of course, here in Salt Lake City, we have over 60,000 miles of trail, like in our trail
Hmm.
system that's connected to Salt Lake County. So,
Hmm.
there's much more in the catalog of outdoor recreation and national parks that we could grow to get familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But national
Um,
parks are the cute girl, they're the hot girl of it all.
that I love that you said that. I feel like once you understand like kind of the lay of the land, then it's like, oh, okay, this is how it's set up. And there's definitely a lot more to experience. And with that, I think for myself, I realized there's so much more Black history connected to these park units. So, is there anything that you've learned in your national park visits about Black history that you didn't know before that you want to learn more of moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. Since I'm in the Intermountain West here in Salt Lake
Hmm.
City, one thing that I was surprised to know about is the very large part that Buffalo soldiers have played in creating trail systems here in Salt Lake City and not just, in their national park system as well. The
Hmm.
Buffalo soldiers were here at Fort Douglas. A nonprofit here in Salt Lake City called Sima Hadithi is doing really great work in building awareness of that and also trying to see how they can conserve land to uphold that history of Black people here in the state in regards to just land and our impact on it here in Utah. So I would have to say Buffalo Soldiers. Like, you hear the Bob Marley song when you're a
Yeah.
kid
Yeah.
and you're just like, yeah, this is just a song that we play at like barbecues.
Mhm.
And you don't always make the connection until you get to
Right.
see the actual plaque or the actual documentary, or
Hmm.
I think there's even a documentary about Theodore Roosevelt and national
Hmm.
parks and America's Best Idea, where you touch on Buffalo soldiers. And I was like, oh my goodness, I feel seen, I feel heard, because not only did you have the Buffalo soldiers, some of those resulting initiatives off of that were like the Conservation Corps and things like that,
Yeah.
who built trail
Hmm.
systems.
Hmm. And yeah, and a very complex history with indigenous peoples as well, in creating um, trails and spaces for um, white people to utilize for recreation. There's so much connected history, which is why I'm even more fascinated in learning more about our national park system just within the US. It's very different globally, but within the US, there's definitely a lot of ties to Black history that I wish I'd been more familiar with growing up. What has been your go-to for getting out to national parks? Is there a specific thing that you're drawn to, whether it's recreational or whether it's nature? Natural phenomena that's happening, or just to congregate with other people, other groups, family members.
I think for me, because I am a mom of a young child, I think it's had to morph over the
Hmm.
years based on, her ability and distance.
Hmm.
So I have a tendency to really love any ADA accessibility when it comes to my young child because I can take a stroller, I can have her on my hiking pack and
Yeah.
go, and they're usually very short distances to view corridors, and they're usually, gated and a little bit safer for her to also enjoy the outdoors without me having to worry worry about her rolling over a hill or something
Mm-hmm.
horrible. So I guess to answer that question, I haven't found quite my jam yet because, motherhood is constantly evolving, caregiverhood is constantly evolving. And the same thing could be said when I include my mother in some of these things as she's getting older. She's in her late 50s. I think that, ADA accessible options at either state or national parks has been probably my go to when
Yeah.
figuring out whatever park I'm going to go to is.
So are you a postcard person? Are you a stamp person? What's your when you visit? 'Cause I always get so giddy going to the visitor center to get my stamp. What's your
Yeah, what
uh
swag do I take from the park?
yeah, yeah.
I'm a map collector and a
Oh, nice.
sticker. I'm a water bottle sticker lady.
Okay, okay. So are you planning this out like when you're thinking about national park trips, are you planning out like what you want to get, or is it just whatever you see that fascinates you, you just get?
That's a really great question. I feel like if I run into a map, I will probably get
Hmm.
two copies, one for keeping and one to make dog-eared and use that I keep in my
Uh-huh.
car. And then if there are stickers, I'm going to take advantage of that. And of course, I have a young one, so she usually is looking for a stuffy. We
Yeah.
have a lady park ranger, brown lady park ranger stuffy that she takes
Aw,
everywhere to the national park. It's pretty
that's
much like
cute.
Flat Stanley at this point,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
yeah, so stuffies and those things.
Does she get the junior ranger badges?
Yes, she just got her first Junior Ranger badge
Oh,
this past
yay.
summer, and she got it at the Channel Islands National Park where I actually used to work
Channel
as a junior
Island.
ecologist. So
Oh,
that made me feel
cool.
really happy. She hasn't touched foot on the island yet. We'll see
Hmm.
what happens this summer, but we did visit the visitor center.
So what was your experience there? That sounds amazing, by the way.
It was great. It was really great. I was in a really interesting predicament
Hmm.
because I was a junior ecologist or field biologist, if you will. So,
Hmm.
the island that I was mostly working on was Santa Rosa Island, and they were going through some very big land restoration
Hmm.
efforts after some ranching families had no longer privately owned the island. So,
Hmm.
we were trying to stop erosion and catalog all the species and do a lot of botany and just kind of see what was going on under the hood to see what the
Yeah.
health of the island was. So I
Hmm.
was kind of more of a field
Hmm.
worker, if you could. I would go and get the
Yeah.
data that I was told to get, and I
Uh-huh.
would bring it back.
Did that include birds?
No, that didn't include birds there, but prior to me leaving the island, I worked on the shores of Point Mugu Navy Base, and that
Nice. Yeah.
included ornithology because we were monitoring endangered bird species like the plover and the California least tern.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so are you a birder? I
I
need to
am
know.
a bird conservationist or naturalist, if you will.
Okay.
When I was, very deep in that line of work, I was trying to figure
Mhm.
out what would work best for me. And
Yeah.
birds get up too damn early, okay? Like, that was a line for me. I love the tiny dinosaurs,
No,
but y'all are up way too early for me. So I will see you at the magic hour.
I love it. I love it. Do you have an interest in ecology still? Like, is that still a part of your work, or have you transitioned more into the city planning? I think you mentioned. Is that like
Yeah,
more full time?
there are still some intersections because, of course, in most cities we have public lands or parks and
Hmm.
rec divisions and departments, and they normally have people who are specifically trained in that working in their offices, hopefully. We
Yeah.
are very lucky to have that in ours. So I do try and get in where I can fit in with that crew as
Hmm.
much as possible. I absolutely adore them. We have a great division, and they're growing very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, I think that one of the ways that I've been most involved is we have a trail system update that is going to be happening. And so we've been trying to just roll that out in a way that includes a lot more community members and has science as, its basis and foundation and focus,
Hmm.
as opposed to not being deliberate and thoughtful in our approach. So that way I've been contributing. And then we also, are trying to become closer through the League of Cities and Towns with the, what is it, Children in Nature Network. It's a very great national initiative. So, yeah.
Yes. And I am one of their natural leaders. I was a part of their cohort in 2013, so I will be actually attending
Oh,
their conference
in
this
May,
year.
right?
Yep, in
That's
Madison.
great.
So I'm
Oh,
so excited for
wow.
that.
That's wonderful. I might see you there then.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Because you know what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be birding.
Yes, every chance you get, every time I see you with your
I'm going to be
binoculars, I know where
birding.
you're headed.
This will be my second time visiting Madison, so I'm really excited for that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to rebuilding some of my connections since 2020. Things have gone,
Yes,
awry with like yeah, travel and just connecting and maintaining a lot of professional relationships. So I feel like this is kind of my opportunity to like revisit that and
yeah,
kind of see what people have been up to and what they've been working on in their communities, but also just yeah across the nation. So
yeah.
I'm super excited for that.
Well, if
Um,
you ever come to Utah, I highly suggest you visit our Salt Lake City Tracy Aviary. We
mm,
have it located in our Liberty Park, which is the central park of Salt Lake City, if you will.
don't tempt
Uh,
me.
the aviary is amazing, and they have a great leader, Mr. Tim Brown. This will be the first year, I believe, that they're going to be doing some Black Birders Week engagements at the end of May. So that is cooking up at the Tracy Aviary, along with some
Okay.
really cool film festivals. It's being funded by the city's Arts, Culture, and Events grant.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for that update because I literally there's so many states. So then I'm realizing like, oh, people are doing things, but like there's so much stuff going on. So it's hard to keep track or like even know what's happening in
Yes,
relation
yes.
to Black Birders Week or even just park stuff. So thank you for that information. I
Yeah.
would definitely love to visit. I would like to know if anyone is visiting or like wanting to visit Utah for the first time or is interested in visiting parks in Utah, what would be
Mhm.
like a beginner national park that you would recommend?
Oh, goodness. That's a hard question. Because we got the big five for a reason,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
It's just like that Kendrick and J. Cole and Drake beef, you know what I mean? Ain't no big three, it's big me. So Um, I would say, for me at least, I really enjoyed visiting Capitol Reef National Park. I we visited when my baby was 2 years old, and I felt like it was really user friendly, accessible. There are a lot of low grade hills to see really great view corridors from. So yeah, I'd probably say Capitol Reef, and it's also really close to you can pop over to Zion.
Yeah.
You can maybe stop over at Kanab, but
Mhm.
yeah.
So what's the kind of landscape like for those big five
Yeah.
that people kind of need to pay attention to, but also like throughout the year, kind of some highlights that people can expect?
Yeah, so I feel like when people think of Utah, they have a tendency to think of our beautiful, majestic red rocks
Hmm.
and the desert. And then when the desert's not present, there's the snow. I
Hmm.
think that people need to be cognizant of what season that they're visiting, especially if they're going to Zion's National Park and hiking the Narrows, because flash flooding is a thing and climate change is a thing, and weather can be very unpredictable and make it unsafe for you. So just being very cognizant of what season you're visiting and what things you need to be aware of in regards to the weather, because it can change on a swivel. I think that in Salt Lake City, or as you get further north into Utah, I think people are usually surprised to see that we have a lot of trees, streams, rivers, lakes, very beautiful mountains. Like that snow has to melt and go somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think sometimes people are surprised that we have both in that
Hmm.
regard. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you're coming here to ski, you can go right up to Park City. We really are a city in the mountains. I know Denver says that, but
It's
we
like, no,
really
we're
are that.
literally. That's awesome. Yes, thank you for that because I'm always interested in now more so than before of like you see, stuff in magazines and on TV and then you get there and you're like, "Oh, these are other things I have to pay attention to, especially around weather." So, it's good to have that background knowledge on different landscapes within a specific area or region. Um,
Hmm.
what plans do you have for future national park visits this year or beyond?
I mean, I'm trying to get on with what you're hosting. Ain't you doing something in October?
Yes.
I think I already signed up.
Yes.
So,
I have my Black Birders at Yosemite event that I am planning with the Shelton Johnson. I'm so excited for this. And yes, this is happening in October. I actually will be putting out some updates on that information event next week. So be on the lookout for that.
I'll be on the
And yeah,
lookout.
it's all about bird watching and history and Yosemite and yeah, getting Black people engaged with national parks. So yeah, this is kind of like a huge undertaking for me, but I've been wanting to do it for some time. So it's like, why not just jump in and, get my feet wet and go from there. Like the sky's the limit. Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, I'm excited that you're interested because there's definitely more of those types of events to come, especially my Black and National Parks Conference idea that hopefully I can start thinking about towards the end of this year, because I would love to have a conference that feels like a family reunion. So that would be amazing.
I
Um,
love that with the electric slide and
right?
everything.
All the music, the clothes, like the literally I think of like my aunts, my uncles, and like just catching up and like the laughter. I always hear the laughter when I think of family reunions, and that always like gets me so excited. So yeah, I have a lot of ideas. So yeah, I will be sharing more about that at a later time. And I'm looking forward to, yeah, this Yosemite trip, to actually just be there. This will be my first time visiting Yosemite. Um, and that was my first time figuring out that Shelton Johnson was an actual back park ranger. Like, was watching the Kim Burns documentary. I thought he was an actor. I kid you not. I literally thought he was an actor. I'm like, no, that's a real. I'm like, what?
Surprise.
So full circle moment for me to be planning this event around birds and like he has an interest in birds and like yeah, we're just having these amazing conversations for around planning.
Yeah.
And I am so excited that I'm doing this story project with people like you because it just shows the variety of experiences that we're having in these spaces and why they're important and why it's important for us to share our stories in these ways so it doesn't feel like like you were having these conversations of having those experiences of being the only one or being part of a few, and it's growing, like it's forever growing, and there's so many more of us that have these interests and have been doing these things for decades. So bringing it to light and bringing it to the forefront is so important. I love the storytelling aspect of these experiences because it's vast, it's different, but it also connects us. So if I can, do this for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. So so
Speak it
yeah,
into existence.
right? Yes. So this is the start of that journey for me, and it's really important for me because I'm building my own memories and experiences for myself and for family and friends who feel like they didn't have a voice to share for fear of being judged or um, not having support from community to continue to explore these opportunities. So I want to hold the torch for that and to motivate other Black people to do the same. So last question. What park has, and this is just like generally, 'cause I don't know if you know how many parks you've been to thus far, but what is a park that's left something that's really like profound for you?
I'd have to go back to my experience at actually working at a network of parks. Channel Islands National Park has five that they manage that are all islands. And I think that I would have to choose Anacapa because that was the
Hmm.
first one that I started volunteering at. That was my entry point into the Channel Islands National Park system and the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. A nonprofit called Channel Islands Conservation, I believe, runs
Hmm.
volunteer events and does a lot of community outreach for stewarding that island. So
Hmm.
I would say that one has had the most profound impact. It's only a 45-minute boat ride from shore. It's highly accessible, if you will.
Hmm.
I think I've seen a lot of diverse community members go to that park more so than
Yeah.
the other ones. But yeah, I have to see that one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing your time with me. If anyone is interested in connecting with you, how can they do that?
Oh, of course. So you can see me at Outdoor Auntie on Instagram. You can also email me as well. You have that information. And I just actually think I have a website, and I'll give you that information too.
Awesome. I will be happy to share that. And if you are tuned in, thank you so much for watching. If you were not able to watch this, you can watch the replay on my YouTube live channel. And I will be sharing that on my Instagram page as well. Thank you so, so much, Ashley. It was a pleasure having you.